Okay, hello. See, I did say I was gonna do the stream. Like, it's like, come on. I've been talking about this like a crazy person. I talked about it yesterday, did the day before. Basically, every time I've been streaming, I've been talking about this damn stream. So it was gonna happen again. You guys, I don't know how to do introductions. I have been streaming for so long, and you would think I would get like better at it, but I don't. I just unmute my mic and start blabbering like an idiot. Ah, God, give my life some direction, or at least my introduction some direction. Is that too much to ask for? I feel like it is. I feel like I shouldn't have said that. I feel like I'm gonna get screwed over royally. Oh God. But yes, we are going to do another Twilight reading stream because I want to finish this book. Oh my God. And I also promised I'm gonna make waiting rooms for other streams, and I did that today. I make one for Friday specifically or Saturday because I don't know if I'm gonna be in the mood to sleep or stream. It could go either way. I really like to sleep. Those are like my 2 days off. I get 1.5 days off, so I would like to make you make the most out of them, and I do that by napping. I'm sure a lot of you would understand that though. It's fine. Okay, let's not waste time. We have 1.5 hours to finish 2 chapters, so let's get into it. Okay, hold on. There we go. What? What is this? Elgato, why are you messing with me? Huh? I'm not sure if you guys can hear the rain sound. I mean, I'm hoping you can. Otherwise, it's like, whoops. Uh, uh, Whatever. Anyways, let's just carry on. Okay. We finished chapter 3 and 4 last time, so now we are gonna be doing chapter 5. Oh no. Okay. Yes, so okay, chapter 5 Blood Type. Okay. I made my way to English in a daze. I didn't even realize when I first walked in that class had Didn't even realize when I first walked in that the class had already started. Thank you for joining us, Miss Swan, Mr. Mason said in a disparaging tone. I flushed and hurried to my seat. It wasn't until class ended that I realized Mike wasn't sitting in his usual seat next to me. I felt a twinge of guilt, but he and Eric both met me at the door as usual, so I figured I wasn't totally unforgiven. Mike seemed to become more himself as we walked, gaining enthusiasm as he talked about the weather report for this weekend. The rain was supposed to take a minor break, and so maybe this beach trip would be possible. I tried to sound eager to make up for disappointing him yesterday. It was hard. Rain or no rain, it would still only be in the high 40s if we were lucky. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. It was difficult to believe that I hadn't just imagined what Edward had said and the way his eyes had looked. Maybe it was a very convincing dream that I'd confused with reality. That seemed more probable than that it really appealed to him on any level. So I was impatient and frightened as Jessica and I entered the cafeteria. I wanted to see his face, to see if he had gone back to the cold, indifferent person I'd known for the last several weeks, or if by some miracle I'd really heard what I thought I'd heard this morning. Jessica babbled on and on about her dance plans. Lauren and Angela had asked the other boys, and they were all going together, completely unaware of my inattention. Disappointment flooded through me as my eyes unerringly focused on his table. The other four were there, but he was absent. Had he gone home? I followed the still babbling Jessica through the line crushed. I lost my appetite. Bought nothing but a bottle of lemonade. I just wanted to go sit down and sulk. Edward Cullen is staring at you again, Jessica said, finally breaking through my abstraction with his name. I wonder why he's sitting alone today. My head snapped up and I followed her gaze to see Edward smiling crookedly, staring at me from an empty table across the cafeteria from where he usually sat. Once he'd caught my eye, he raised his hand and motioned with his index finger for me to join him. As I stared in disbelief, he winked. Does he mean you? Jessica asked with insulting astonishment in her voice. Maybe he needs help with his biology homework, I muttered for her benefit. I'd better go see what he wants. I could feel her staring at me as I walked away. When I reached his table, I stood behind the chair across from him, unsure. Why don't you sit with me today? He asked, smiling. I sat down automatically, watching him with caution. He was still smiling. It was hard to believe that someone so beautiful could be real. I was afraid that he might disappear in a sudden puff of smoke and I would wake up. He seemed to be waiting for me to say something. This is different, I finally managed. Well, he paused, and then the rest of the words followed in a rush. I decided as long as I was going to hell, I might as well do it thoroughly. I waited for him to say something that made sense. The seconds ticked by. I don't have any idea what you mean, I eventually pointed out. I know, he smiled again, and then he changed the subject. I think your friends are angry with me for stealing you. They'll survive. I could feel their stares boring into me. I may not give you back, though, he said with a wicked glint in his eyes. I gulped. He laughed. What is this? You look worried. No, I said, but ridiculously my voice broke. Surprised, actually. What brought all this on? I told you, I got tired of staying away from you, so I'm giving up. He was still smiling, but his ochre eyes were serious. Giving up? I repeated in confusion. Yes, giving up trying to be good. I'm just going to do what I want now, and let the chips fall where they may. His smile faded as he explained, and a hard edge crept into his voice. You lost me again. The breathtaking crooked smile reappeared. Ah, Stephanie, you can't go one page without describing how beautiful Edward is. I always say too much when I'm talking to you. That's one of the problems. Don't worry, I don't understand any of it, I said. I'm counting on that. So in plain English, are we friends now? Friends, he mused, dubious. Or not, I muttered. He grilled. Well, we can try, I suppose. But I'm warning you now that I'm not a good friend for you. Behind his smile, the warning was real. Okay, so if you're not a good friend for her, then stay away. This is one thing about Edward that I just do not understand. He's just like, I'm no good for you. Maybe I'm the villain. I am a monster. I am the devil, blah, blah, blah. But he never stays away. Like he does for one book, then he ends up coming back. So maybe he does kind of sort of stay away. Like a little bit. Anyways, you say that a lot, I noted, trying to ignore the sudden trembling in my stomach and keep my voice even. Yes, but you're not listening to me. I'm still waiting for you to believe it. If you're smart, you'll avoid me. I think you've made your opinion on the subject of my intellect clear too. My eyes narrowed. He smiled apologetically. So, as long as I'm being not smart, we'll try to be friends? I struggled to sum up the confusing exchange. That sounds about right. I looked down at my hands wrapped around the lemonade bottle, not sure what to do now. What are you thinking? He asked curiously. I looked up into his deep gold eyes, became befuddled, and as usual blurted out the truth. I'm trying to figure out what you are. His jaw tightened, but he kept his smile in place with some effort. Are you having are you having any luck with that? He asked in an offhand tone. Not too much, I admitted. He chuckled. What are your theories? I blushed. I had been vacillating during the last month between Bruce Wayne and Peter Parker. There was no way I was going to own up to that. Why Bruce Wayne? Did Stephanie just go with like the most popular superhero, right? Like, because Bruce Wayne is just like a millionaire. He has no superpowers, so he can't really move super fast. I mean, Superman? Maybe. Even Peter Parker is like, but he has the webs, so I guess he can sling himself around. But why Bruce? What the hell is he doing here? See, won't you tell me? He asked, tilting his head to one side with a shockingly tempting smile. There it is again. I shook my head. Too embarrassing. That's really frustrating, he complained. No, I disagreed quickly, my eyes narrowing. I can't imagine why that would be frustrating at all. Just because someone refuses to tell you what they're thinking, even if all the while they're making cryptic little remarks specifically designed to keep you up at night wondering what they could possibly mean. Now, why would that be frustrating? He grimaced. Or better, I continued the pent up annoyance flowing freely now. Say that the person also did a wide range of bizarre things, from saving your life under impossible circumstances one day to treating you like a pariah the next. He never explained any of that either, even after he promised that also would be very non frustrating. Damn, Bella, okay. You've got a bit of temper, don't you? I don't like double standards. We stared at each other, unsmiling. He glanced over my shoulder and then unexpectedly he snickered. What? Your boyfriend seems to think I'm being unpleasant to you. He's debating whether or not to come break up our fight, he snickered again. I don't know who you're talking about, I said frostily, but I'm sure you're wrong anyway. I'm not. I told you, most people are easy to read. Except for me, of course. Yes, except for you. His mood shifted suddenly. His eyes turned brooding. I wonder why that is. I had to look away from the intensity of his stare. I concentrated on unscrewing the lid of my lemonade. I took a swig, staring at the table without seeing it. Aren't you hungry? He asked, distracted. No. Hold on. Hmm. No, I didn't feel like mentioning that my stomach was already full of butterflies. You? I looked at the empty table in front of him. No, I'm not hungry. I didn't understand his expression. It looked like he was enjoying some private joke. Well, he is hungry, but he's hungry for you, huh? You would think that there's like a sex related joke in there, but no, he just literally wants to drink her blood. So it's, it can't even be a cannibal related joke because he's a vampire. If vampires eat human meat, is that cannibalism? Or just because they're vampires now, they're considered a new species? So it's not cannibalism. But they are kind of, sort of, in a way, human still. I feel like that's gonna be a debate for when I drink wine the next time. Okay, let's see. Can you do me a favor? I asked after a second of hesitation. He was suddenly wary. It depends on what you want. It's not much, I assured him. He waited, guarded but curious. I just wondered if you could warn me beforehand the next time you decide to ignore me for my own good. Just so I'm prepared. I looked at the lemonade bottle as I spoke, tracing the circle of the opening with my pinky finger. That sounds fair. He was pressing his lips together to keep from smiling when I looked up. Thanks. Then can I have one answer in return? He demanded. One. Tell me one theory. Whoops, not that one. You didn't qualify, you just promised me one answer, he reminded me. And you've broken promises yourself, I reminded him back. Just one theory. I won't laugh. Yes, you will. I was positive about that. He looked down and then glanced up at me through his long black lashes, his ochre eyes scorching. Please? He breathed, leaning toward me. I blinked, my mind going black. Holy crow, how did he do that? What? I asked, dazed. Please tell me just one theory. His eyes still smoldered at me. Um, well, written by a radioactive spider? Was he a hypnotist too? Or was I just a hopeless pushover? I'm gonna go with a hopeless pushover. Hi Sue, how are you? That's not very creative, he scoffed. I'm sorry, that's all I've got, I said, miffed. You're not even close, he teased. No spiders? Nope. And no radioactivity? None. Dang, I sighed. Kryptonite doesn't bother me either, he chuckled. I mean, to be fair, he pretty much turns up the charm in almost every chapter. Not even every chapter, it's every page. Like, it's like you could have a. If you had a drinking game and you took in which you took a shot every time Bella thought Edward was good looking, you would die of alcohol poisoning before the chapter was over. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't test this theory. Don't do it. Okay, where was I? You're not supposed to laugh, remember? He struggled to compose his face. I'll figure it out eventually, I warned him. I wish you wouldn't try. He was serious again. Because what if I'm not a superhero? What if I am the bad guy? He smiled playfully, but his eyes were impenetrable. Oh no, he drinks the blood of tears. Oh, what a bad guy. What a horrible, horrible man. I'm sorry, I can never like wrap my head around his moral dilemma. Hey, maybe no, Sue, don't. I'm trying to keep you alive. Need to keep my drinking game ideas to myself. I wish you wouldn't try, he was. Oh, wait. Oh, I said, as several things he'd hinted fell suddenly into place. I see. Do you? His face was abruptly severe, as if he were afraid that he'd accidentally said too much. You're dangerous? I guessed, my pulse quickening as I intuitively realized the truth of my own words. He was dangerous. He'd been trying to tell me that all along. He just looked at me, eyes full of some emotion I couldn't comprehend. But not bad, I whispered, shaking my head. No, I don't believe that you're bad. You're wrong. His voice was almost inaudible. He looked down, stealing my bottle lid and then spinning it on its side between his fingers. I stared at him, wondering why I didn't feel afraid. He meant what he was saying. That was obvious, but I just felt anxious, on edge, and more than anything else, fascinated. The same way I always felt when I was near him. Yeah, that's called having a crush. Like you're literally this is the literal Wattpad trope, right? The bad boy is like, I'm no good for you. I'm the worst thing that could happen to you. And the girl's just like batting her eyes and going like, oh my god, you're saying that, but I just don't believe you because you make my heart go doki doki. Common sense has left the chat. The silence lasted until I noticed the cafeteria was almost empty. I jumped to my feet. We're going to be late. I'm not going to class today, he said, twirling the lid as fast. It was just a blur. Why not? It's healthy to ditch class now and then. He smiled up at me, but his eyes were still troubled. Well, I'm going, I told him. I was far too big of a coward to take the risk of getting caught. He turned his attention back to his makeshift top. I'll see you later then. I hesitated, torn, but then the first bell sent me hurrying out the door, with with the last glance confirming that he hadn't moved a centimeter. I half ran to class. My head was spinning faster than the bottle cap. So few questions had been answered in comparison to how many new questions had been raised. At least the rain had stopped. I was lucky. Mr. Banner wasn't in the room yet when I arrived. I settled quickly into my seat, aware that Mike and Angela were staring at me. Mike looked resentful. Angela looked surprised and slightly awed by Mr. Awed. Sorry. Oh god. These big paragraphs throw me off. Mr. Banner came in the room then, calling the class to order. He was juggling a few small cardboard boxes in his arm. He put them down on Mike's table, telling him to start passing them around the class. Okay, guys, I want you all to take one piece from each box, he said as he produced a pair of rubber gloves from the pocket of his lab jacket and pulled them on. The sharp sound as the gloves snapped into place against his wrist seemed ominous to me. The first should be an indicator card, he went on, grabbing a white card with four squares marked on it and displaying it. The second is a four pronged applicator. He held up something that looked like a nearly toothless hair pick. And the third is a sterile micro lancet. He held up a small piece of blue plastic and split it open. The barb was invisible from this distance, but my stomach flipped. I'll be coming around with a dropper of water to prepare your card, so please don't start until I get to you. He began at Mike's table again, carefully putting one drop of water in each of the four squares. Then I want you to carefully prick your finger with the lancet. He grabbed Mike's hand and jabbed the spike into the tip of Mike's middle finger. Oh no. Clammy moisture broke out across my forehead. Put a small drop of blood on each of the prongs, he demonstrated, squeezing Mike's finger till the blood flowed. I swallowed convulsively, my stomach heaving, and then applied to the card, he finished, holding up the dripping red card for us to see. I closed my ears, trying to hear the ringing in my I closed my eyes. How do you close your ear? What is wrong with me? I closed my eyes, trying to hear through the ringing in my ears. The Red Cross is having a blood drive in Port Angeles next week. Is it Port Angeles or is it Port Angeles, like Los Angeles? I'm gonna go with Port Angeles because that's like my only, Los Angeles is my only frame of reference here. The Red Cross is having a blood drive in Port Angeles next weekend, so I thought you should all know your blood type. He sounded proud of himself. Those of you who aren't 18 yet still need a parent's permission. I have slips at my desk. He continued through the room with his water drops. I put my cheek against the cool black tabletop and tried to hold onto my conscience. All around me, I could hear squeals, complaints, and giggles as my classmates skewered their fingers. I breathed slowly in and out through my mouth. Bella, are you alright? Mr. Banner asked. His voice was close to my head and it sounded alarmed. I already know my blood type, Mr. Banner, I said in a weak voice. I was afraid to raise my head. Are you feeling faint? Yes, sir, I muttered, internally kicking myself for not ditching when I had the chance. Okay, I have a question. I already asked the question about Port Angeles, but still. Does this actually happen? Like, do teachers just come around and make you check your blood type for biology class? Because, what the fuck? Like, if this is just something that was made up for the book, okay. But, like, if this actually happens, what the fuck is going on, US of A? Like, my biology class was just like, looking through the microscope for, like, we used to do this thing with the onion and see the different layers and all that jazz, but nobody ever pricked their finger, especially not on purpose. And how is he even supposed to tell their blood type? Is he qualified to do that? What is this? Like the first time I read this, it blew my mind because I was just like, does this actually happen? What the hell? Like, either your teachers trust you guys so much, because our teachers would be like one of these bitches is gonna poke their eyes out. We're not gonna do that. This is just weird. I'm sorry. It's who does this? Anyways, can someone take Bella to the nurse, please? He called. I didn't have to look up to know that it would be Mike who volunteered. I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened in some school in the States. Yikes. I would not want to be in that school because if any teacher came to me and is like, "Hey, you gotta prick your finger for a blood test," I would just be like, "Fuck you, no, thank you." I hate needles. That's not happening, baby. No, 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 no. Yes, I whispered. Just let me get out of here, I thought. I'll crawl. Mike seemed eager as he put his arms around my waist and pulled my arm over his shoulder. I leaned against him heavily on the way out of the classroom. Mike towed me slowly across the campus. When we were around the edge of the cafeteria out of sight of Building 4, just in case Mr. Banner was watching, I stopped. Just let me sit for a minute, please, I begged. He helped me sit on the edge of the walk. And whatever you do, keep your hand in your pocket, I warned. I was still so dizzy. I slumped over on my side, putting my cheek against the freezing, damp cement of the sidewalk, closing my eyes. That seemed to help a little. Wow, you're green, Bella, Mike said nervously. Bella? A different voice called from the distance. No, please let me be imagining that horribly familiar voice. What's wrong? Is she hurt? His voice was closer now and he sounded upset. I wasn't imagining it. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping to die or at the very least not throw up. Mike seemed stressed. I think she's fainted. I don't know what's happened. She didn't even stick her finger. Bella, Edward's voice was right beside me, relieved now. Can you hear me? No, I groaned. Go away, he chuckled. I was taking her to the nurse, but she wouldn't go any further, Mike explained in a defensive tone. I'll take her, Edward said. I couldn't hear the smile. I could hear I could hear the smile still in his voice. You can go back to class. No, Mike protested. I'm supposed to. Suddenly, the sidewalk disappeared from beneath me. My eyes flew open in shock. Edward had scooped me up in his arms as easily as if I weighed 10 pounds instead of 110. Put me down! Please, please, let me not vomit on him. He was walking before I was finished talking. Hey! Mike called out, already 10 paces behind us. Edward ignored him. You look awful, he told me, grinning. Put me back on the sidewalk, I moaned. The rocking movement of his walk was not helping. He held me away from his body, gingerly supporting all my weight with just his arms. He didn't seem bothered. It didn't seem to bother him. So you faint at the sight of blood? He asked. This seemed to entertain him. I didn't answer. I closed my eyes again and fought the nausea with all my strength, clamping my lips together. And not even your blood, he continued, enjoying himself. I don't know how he opened the door while carrying me, but it was suddenly warm, so I knew we were inside. Oh my, I heard a female voice gasp. She fainted in biology, Edward explained. I opened my eyes. I was in the office, and Edward was striding past the front counter towards the nurse's door. Miss Cope, the red-headed front office receptionist, ran ahead of him to hold it open. The grandmotherly nurse looked up from a novel, astonished, as Edward swung me into the room and placed me gently on the crackly paper that covered the brown vinyl mattress on the one cot. Then he moved to stand against the wall as far across the narrow room as possible. His eyes were bright, excited. Why is he excited? Why is the sight of this woman fainting exciting this man so much? Edward, Edward. She's just a little faint, he reassured the startled nurse. They're blood typing in biology. The nurse nodded sagely. There's always one. He muffled a snicker. Just lie down for a minute, honey, it'll pass. I know, I sighed. The nausea was already fading. Does this happen a lot? She asked. Sometimes, I admitted. Edward coughed to hide another laugh. You can go back to class now, she told him. I'm supposed to stay with her, he said with such reassured authority that even though she pursed her lips, the nurse didn't argue it further. I'll go get you some ice for your forehead, dear, she said to me, and then bustled out of the room. You were right, I moaned, letting my eyes close. I usually am, but about what in particular this time? Teaching is healthy. I practice breathing evenly. You scared me for a minute there, he admitted after a pause. His tone made it sound like he was confessing a humiliating weakness. I thought Newton was dragging your dead body off to bury it in the woods. Mike as a yandere. It could be interesting. Ha ha. I still had my eyes closed, but I was feeling more normal every minute. Honestly, I've seen corpses with better color. I was concerned that I might have to avenge your murder. Poor Mike. I bet he's mad. Oh, he absolutely loathes me, Edward said cheerfully. You can't know that, I argued, but then I wondered suddenly if he could. I saw his face. I could tell. How did you see me? I thought you were ditching. I was almost fine now, though the queasiness would probably pass faster if I'd eaten something for lunch. On the other hand, maybe it was lucky my stomach was empty. I was in my car listening to a CD. Such a normal response, it surprised me. I heard the door and opened my eyes to see the nurse with the cold compress in her hand. Here you go, dear, she said. She laid it across my forehead. You're looking better, she added. I think I'm fine, I said, sitting up. Just a little ringing in my ears, no spinning. The mint green walls stayed where they should. I could see she was about to make me lie back down, but the door opened just then, and Miss Cope stuck her head in. We've got another one, she warned. I hopped down to free up the cord for the next invalid. I handed the compress back to the nurse. Here, I don't need this. And then Mike staggered through the door, now supporting a sallow-looking Lee Stephens, another boy in our biology class. Edward and I drew back against the wall to give them room. Oh no, Edward muttered. Get out of the office, Bella. I looked up at him bewildered. Trust me, go. I spun and caught the door before it closed, darting out of the infirmary. I could feel Edward right behind me. You actually listened to me. He was stunned. I smelled the blood, I said, wrinkling my nose. Lee wasn't sick from watching other people like me. People can't smell blood, he contradicted. Well, I can. That's what makes me sick. It smells like rust and salt. He was staring at me with an unfathomable expression. What? I asked. It's nothing. Mike came through the door, glancing from me to Edward. The look he gave Edward confirmed what Edward had said about loathing. He looked back at me, his eyes glum. You look better, he accused. Just keep your hands in your pocket, I warned him again. It's not bleeding anymore, he muttered. Are you going back to class? Are you kidding? I just have to turn around and come back. Yeah, I guess. So, are you going this weekend? To the beach? While he spoke, he flashed another glare towards Edward, who was just standing against the cluttered counter, motionless as a sculpture staring off into space. I tried to sound as friendly as possible. Sure, I said I was in. We're meeting at my dad's store at 10. His eyes flickered to Edward again, wondering if he was giving out too much information. His body language made it clear that it wasn't an open invitation. I'll be there, I promised. I'll see you in gym then, he said, moving uncertainly towards the door. See you, I replied. He looked at me once more, his round face slightly pouting, and then he walked slowly through the door, his shoulders slumped. A swell of sympathy washed over me. I pondered seeing his disappointed face again in gym. Jim, I groaned. I can take care of that. I hadn't noticed Edward moving to my side, but spoke now in my ear. Go sit down and look pale, he muttered. That wasn't a challenge. I was always pale, and my recent swoon had left a light sheen of sweat on my face. I sat in one of the creaky folding chairs and rested my head against the wall with my eyes closed. Fainting smells always exhausted me. Okay, give me one moment. I wanted to kind of finish this section, but I really need to drink some water. I'm stumbling over my words more than usual. Better. Hmm. I heard Edward speaking softly at the counter. Miss Cope? Yes, I hadn't heard her turn to her desk. Bella has gym next hour, and I don't think she feels well enough. Actually, I was thinking I should take her home now. Do you think you could excuse her from class? His voice was like melting honey. I could imagine how much more overwhelming his eyes would be. And there it is again. Do you need to be excused too, Edward? Miss Cope fluttered. Why couldn't I do that? No, I have Miss Goff. She wouldn't mind. Okay, it's all taken care of. You feel better, Bella, she called to me. I nodded weakly, hamming it up just a bit. Can you walk, or do you want me to carry you? This back to the receptionist, his expression became sarcastic. I'll walk. I stood carefully and I was still fine. He held the door for me, his smile polite but his eyes mocking. I walked out into the cold. Fine mist that had just begun to fall. It felt nice, the first time I had enjoyed the constant moisture falling out of the sky, as it washed my face clean of the sticky perspiration. Thanks, I said as he followed me out. It's almost worth getting sick to miss Jim. Any time he was staring straight forward, squinting into the rain. So, are you going? The Saturday, I mean? I was hoping he would, though it seemed unlikely. I couldn't picture him loading up to carpool with the rest of the kids from school. He didn't belong in the same world. Just hoping that he might give me the first twinge of enthusiasm I'd felt for the outing. Where are you all going exactly? He was still looking ahead, expressionless. Down to La Push, the first speech. I studied his face, trying to read it. His eyes seemed to narrow. Infinite. What the hell, Stephanie? Sometimes she uses words and I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm just gonna skip that. Screw you. He glanced down at me from the corner of his eye, smiling wearily. I really don't think I was invited. I sighed. I just invited you. Let's you and I not push poor Mike any further than this. We don't want him to snap. His eyes danced. He was enjoying the idea more than he should. Mike, I muttered, preoccupied with the way he said, you and I. I liked it more than I should. We were near the parking lot. I veered left towards my truck. Something caught my jacket, yanking me back. And where do you think you're going? He asked, outraged. Outraged. He was gripping a fistful of my jacket in one hand. I was confused. I'm going home? Didn't you hear me promise to take you home safely? Do you think I'm going to let you drive in your condition? His voice was still indignant. What condition? And what about my truck? I complained. I'll have Alice drop it off later. He was towing me towards his car now, pulling me by my jacket. It was all I could do to keep from falling backward. He'd probably just drag me along anyway if I did. Let go, I insisted. He ignored me. I staggered along sideways across the wet sidewalk until we reached the Volvo. Then he finally freed me. I stumbled against the passenger door. You are so pushy, I grumbled. It's open, was all he responded. He got on the driver's side. I am perfectly capable of driving myself home. I stood by the car, fuming. It was raining harder now. I'd never put up my hood, so my hair was dripping down my back. He lowered the automatic window and leaned toward me across the seat. Get in, Bella. I didn't answer. I was mentally calculating my chances of reaching the truck before he could catch me. I had to admit, they weren't good. I'll just drag you back, he threatened, guessing my plan. I tried to maintain what dignity I could as I got into his car. I wasn't very successful. I looked like a half drowned cat, and my boots squeaked. This is completely unnecessary, I said stiffly. He didn't answer. He fiddled with the controls, turning the heater up and the music down. As he pulled out of the parking lot, I was prepared to give him the silent treatment, my face in full pout mode, but then I recognized the music playing, and my curiosity got the better of my intention. Claire de Lune? I asked, surprised. You know Debussy? Is it Debussy? Because it sounds so wrong when I say it. I it's not my fault. I blame the memes. It is the generation of today that has ruined my sense of humor. Oh god. No, I can't. I can't. I'm just gonna move on. It's gonna haunt me now. Not well, I admitted. My mother plays a lot of classical music around the house. I only know my favorites. It's one of my favorites too. He stared out through the rain, lost in thought. And that's when he knew that she was the love of his life. Listen to the music relaxing against the light grey leather seat. It was impossible not to respond to the familiar soothing melody. The rain blurred everything outside the window into grey green smudges. I began to realize we were driving very fast. The car moved so steadily, so evenly, though I didn't feel the speed. Only the town flashing by gave it away. What is your mother like? He asked me suddenly. I glanced over to him, studying me with curious eyes. She's a lot like me, but she's prettier, I said. He raised his eyebrows. I have too much Charlie in me. She's more outgoing than I am and braver. She's irresponsible and slightly eccentric, and she's a very unpredictable cook. She's my best friend. I stopped. Talking about her was making me depressed. How old are you, Bella? He sounded frustrated for some reason I couldn't imagine. He'd stopped the car, and I realized we were at Charlie's house already. The rain was so heavy that I could barely see the house at all. It was like the car was submerged underwater. I'm 17, I responded a little confused. You don't seem 17. His tone was reproachful. It made me laugh. What? He asked, curious again. My mom always said I was born 35 years old and that I'd get more middle aged every year. I laughed and then sighed. Well, someone has to be the adult. I paused for a second. You don't seem much like a junior in high school yourself, I noted. He made a face and changed the subject. So why did your mother marry Phil? I was surprised he would remember the name. I mentioned it just once, almost 2 months ago. It took me a moment to answer. My mother, she's very young for her age. I think Phil makes her feel even younger. At any rate, she's crazy about him. I shook my head. The attraction was a mystery to me. Do you approve? Does it matter? I countered. I want her to be happy, and he is who she wants. That's very generous, I wonder, he mused. What? Would she extend the same courtesy to you, do you think? No matter who your choice was? He was suddenly intent, his eyes searching mine. I think so, I stuttered. But she's the parent, after all. It's a little different. No one too scary then, he teased. I grinned in response. What do you mean by scary? Multiple facial piercings and extensive tattoos? That's one definition, I suppose. What's your definition? But he ignored my question and asked me another. Do you think I could be scary? He raised one eyebrow, and the faint trace of a smile lightened his face. I thought for a moment, wondering whether the truth or a lie would go better. I decided to go with the truth. Hmm, I think you could be if you wanted to. Are you frightened of me now? The smile vanished, and his heavenly face was suddenly serious. Really? Like we're not even pretending anymore? Just straight out heavenly? Okay. No, but I answered too quickly. The smile returned. So, now are you going to tell me about your family? I asked, distracted. It's got to be much more interesting story than mine. He was instantly cautious. What do you want to know? The Cullens adopted you? I verified. Yes. I hesitated for a moment. What happened to your parents? They died many years ago. His tone was matter of fact. I'm sorry, I mumbled. I don't really remember them that clearly. Carlyle and Esme have been my parents for a long time now. And you loved them? It wasn't a question, it was always in the way he spoke of them. Yes, he smiled. I couldn't imagine two better people. You're very lucky. I know I am. And your brother and sister? He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. My brother and sister, and Jasper and Rosalie for that matter, are going to be quite upset if they have to stand in the rain waiting for me. Oh, sorry, I guess you have to go. I didn't want to get out of the car. And you probably want your truck back before Chief Swan gets home so you don't have to tell him about the biology incident. He grinned at me. I'm sure he's already heard. There are no secrets in folks. I sighed. He laughed, and there was an edge in his laughter. Have fun at the beach. Good weather for sunbathing. He glanced out at the cheating rain. Won't I see you tomorrow? No. Emmett and I are starting the weekend early. What are you going to do? A friend could ask that, right? I hope the disappointment wasn't too apparent in my voice. We're going to be hiking in the Goat Rocks wilderness just south of Rainier. I remember Charlie had said the Cullens went camping frequently. Oh, well, have fun. I tried to sound enthusiastic. I don't think I fooled him, though. A smile was playing around the edges of his lips. Will you do something for me this weekend? He turned to look at me straight in the face, utilizing the full power of his burning gold eyes. I nodded helplessly. Don't be offended, but you seem to be one of those people who just attract accidents like a magnet, so try not to fall into the ocean or get run over or anything, alright? He smiled crookedly. The helplessness had faded as he spoke. I glared at him. I'll see what I can do. I snapped as I jumped into the rain. I slammed the door behind me with excessive force. He was still smiling as he drove away. And chapter done. Oh my god. So much I want to say. But I talk a lot during these as it is, so I should probably control myself. But seriously, heavenly face. Heavenly face? I just. If anyone made a compilation of the different words Stephanie uses to describe Edward's face, it's gonna be absurd. I think heavenly is like where you draw the line. Anything across heavenly is just too much. Okay. Chapter 6, Scary Stories. As I sat in my room trying to concentrate on the third act of Macbeth, I was really listening for my truck. I would have thought, even over the pounding rain, I could hear the engines roar. But when I went to peek out the curtain again, it was suddenly there. I wasn't looking forward to Friday, and more than lived up to my non expectations. Of course, there was the fainting comments. Jessica especially seemed to be get a kick out of the story. Luckily, Mike has kept his mouth shut, and no one seemed to know about Edward's involvement. She did have a lot of questions about lunch, though. When they tell you not to be too repetitive, so you use every synonym you can. I think someone's taken a chapter out of My Immortals author's book. I should do a reading of My Immortal. Oh my god. Yes, I'm gonna do that. I need to find it first, but I should do that. That's why didn't I have this idea before? Anyways. So what did Edward Cullen want yesterday? Jessica asked intrigued. I don't know, I answered truthfully. He never really got to the point. You looked kind of mad, she fished. Did I? I kept my expression blank. You know, I've never seen him sit with anyone but his family before. That was weird. Weird, I agreed. She seemed annoyed. She flipped her dark curls impatiently. I guess she'd been hoping to hear something that would make a good story for her to pass on. The worst part about Friday was that even though I knew he wasn't going to be there, I still hoped. When I walked into the cafeteria with Jessica and Mike, I couldn't keep from looking at the table where Rosalie, Alice, and Jasper sat talking, heads close together. I couldn't stop the gloom I couldn't stop the gloom that engulfed me as I realized I didn't know how long I would have to wait before I saw him again. At my usual table, everyone was full of our plans for the next day. Mike was animated again, putting a great deal of trust in the local weatherman who promised sun tomorrow. I'd have to see that before I believed it. But it was warmer today, almost 60. Maybe the outing wouldn't be completely miserable. I intercepted a few unfriendly glances from Lauren during lunch, which I didn't understand until we were all walking out of the room together. I was right behind her, just a foot from her slick silver blonde hair, and she was evidently unaware of that. Don't know why Bella, she sneered my name, doesn't just sit with the Cullens from now on. I heard her muttering to Mike. I'd never noticed what an unpleasant and nasal voice she had, and I was surprised by the malice in it. I really didn't know her well at all, certainly not well enough for her to dislike me. Or so I thought. She's my friend, so she sits with us. Mike whispered back loyally, but also a bit territorially. I paused to let Jess and Angela pass me. I didn't want to hear anymore. The night at dinner, Charlie seemed enthusiastic about my trip to La Push in the morning. I think he felt guilty for leaving me home alone on the weekends, but he'd spent too many years building his habits to break them now. Of course, he knew the names of all the kids going and their parents and their great grandparents too, probably. He seemed to approve. I wondered if he would approve of my plan to ride to Seattle with Edward Cullen. Not that I was going to tell him. Damn, okay then. Dad, do you know a place called Goat Rocks or something like this? I think it's south of Mount Rainier. I asked casually. Yeah, why? I shrugged. Some kids were talking about camping there. It's not a very good place for camping, he sounded surprised. Too many bears. Most people go there during the hunting season. Oh, I murmured. Maybe I got the name wrong. I meant to sleep in, but an unusual brightness woke me. I opened my eyes to see clear yellow light streaming through my window. I couldn't believe it. I hurried to the window to check, but sure enough, there was the sun. It was in the wrong place in the sky, too low, and it didn't seem to be as close as it should be, but it was definitely the sun. Clouds ringed the horizon, but a large patch of blue was visible in the middle. I lingered by the window as long as I could, afraid that if I left the blue would disappear again. Newton's Olympic Outfitters store was just north of town. I'd seen the store, but it never stopped there, not having much need for any supplies required for being outdoors over an extended period of time. In the parking lot, I recognized Mike's Suburban and Tyler's Sentra. As I pulled up next to their vehicles, I could see the group standing around in front of the Suburban. Eric was there, along with two other boys I had class with. I was fairly sure their names were Ben and Connor. Jess was there, flanked by Angela and Lauren. Three other girls stood with them, including one I remembered falling over in gym on Friday. That one gave me a dirty look as I got out of the truck and whispered something to Lauren. Lauren shook out her corn silk hair and eyed me scornfully. So it was going to be one of those days. At least Mike was happy to see me. You came, he called delighted, and I said it would be sunny today, didn't I? I told you I was coming, I reminded him. We're just waiting for Lee and Samantha, unless you invited someone, Mike said. Nope, I lied lightly, hoping I wouldn't get caught in the lie, but also hoping that a miracle would occur and Edward would appear. Mike looked satisfied. Will you ride in my car? Is that It's that or Lee's mom's minivan. Sure. He smiled blissfully. It was so easy to make Mike happy. You can have shotgun, he promised. I hid my chagrin. It wasn't as simple to make Mike and Jessica happy at the same time. I could see Jessica glowering at us now. My god, I would stop being friends with these people. Too much politics, man. Just too much politics. The number worked out in my favor though. Lee brought two extra people, and suddenly every seat was necessary. I managed to wedge Jess in between Mike and me in the front seat of the Suburban. Mike could have been more graceful about it, but at least Jess seemed appeased. It was only 15 minutes to La Push from Fox, with gorgeous dense green forests edging the road most of the way, and the wide Quilliat River snaking beneath it twice. I was glad I had the window seat. We rolled the windows down. The Suburban was a bit claustrophobic with 9 people in it, and I tried to absorb as much sunlight as possible. I'd been to the beaches around La Push many times during my folks' summer with Charlie, so the mile long crescent of the first beach was familiar to me. Huh. It was still breathtaking. The water was dark grey, even in the sunlight, white capped and heaving on the grey rocky shore. Islands rose out of the steel harbor waters with sheer cliff sides reaching to uneven summits and crowned with austere soaring piers. The beach had only a thin border of actual sand at the water's edge, after which it grew into millions of large, smooth stones that looked uniformly grey from a distance, but close up every shade a stone could be. Terracotta, sea green, lavender, blue gray, dull gold. The tide line was strewn with huge driftwood trees, bleached bone white in the salt waves, some piled together against the edge of the forest fringe, some lying solitary, just out of the reach of the waves. There was a brisk wind coming off the waves, cool and briny. Pelicans floated in the swells while seagulls and a lone eagle wheeled above them. The clouds still circled the sky, threatening to invade at any moment, but for now the sun shone bravely in its halo of blue sky. We picked our way down to the beach, Mike leading the way to a ring of driftwood logs that had obviously been used for parties like ours. There was a fire circle already in place, filled with black ashes. Eric and the boy I thought was named Ben gathered broken branches of driftwood from the drier piles against the forest edge and soon had a teepee shaped construction built atop the old cinders. Have you ever seen driftwood? Wait, what? Have you ever seen driftwood fire? Mike asked me. I was sitting on one of the bone colored benches. The other girls clustered, gossiping excitedly on either side of me. Mike kneeled by the fire, lighting one of the smaller sticks with the cigarette lighter. No, I said as he placed the blazing twig carefully against the teepee. You like this then? Watch the colors. He lit another small branch and laid it alongside the first. The flame started to lick quickly up the dry wood. It's blue, I said in surprise. The salt does it. Pretty, isn't it? He lit one more piece, placed it where the fire hadn't yet caught, and then came and sat by me. Thankfully, Jess was on his other side. She turned to him and claimed his attention. I watched the strange blue and green flames crackle towards the sky. After a half hour of chatter, some of the boys wanted to hike to the nearby tidal pools. It was a dilemma. On one hand, I loved the tide pools. They had fascinated me since I was a child. They were one of the only things I ever looked forward to when I had come to Forks. On the other hand, also fallen into them a lot. Not a big deal when you're 7 with your dad. It reminded me of Edward's request that I not fall into the ocean. Lauren was the one who made the decision for me. She didn't want to hike, and she was most definitely wearing the wrong shoes for it. Most of the girls beside Angela and Jessica decided to stay on the beach as well. I waited until Tyler and Eric had committed to remaining with them before I got up quietly to join the pro hiking group. Mike gave me a huge smile when he saw that I was coming. The hike wasn't too long, though I hated to lose the sky in the woods. The green light of the forest was strangely at odds with the adolescent laughter, too murky and ominous to be in harmony with the light banter around me. I had to watch each step I took very carefully, avoiding roots below and branches above, and I soon fell behind. Eventually, I broke through the emerald confines of the forest and found the rocky shore again. It was low tide, and a tidal river flowed past us on its way to the sea. Along its pebbled banks, shallow pools that never completely drained were teeming with life. I was very cautious not to lean too far over the little ocean ponds. The others were fearless, leaping over the rocks, perching precariously on the edges. I found a very stable looking rock on the fringe of one of the largest pools and sat there cautiously, spellbound by the natural aquarium below me. The bouquets of brilliant anemones undulated ceaselessly in the invisible current. Twisted shells scurried about the edges, obscuring the crabs within them. Starfish stuck motionless to the rocks and each other, while one small black eel with white racing stripes wove through the bright green weeds, waiting for the sea to return. I was completely absorbed, except for one small part of my mind that wondered what Edward was doing now, and trying to imagine what he would say if he was near me. Finally, the boys were hungry, and I got up stiffly to follow them back. I tried to keep up better this time through the woods, so naturally I fell a few times. I got some shallow scrapes on my palms, and the knees of my jeans were stained green, but it could have been worse. When we got back to the first beach, the group we had left behind had multiplied. As we got closer, we could see the shining straight black hair and copper skin of the newcomers, teenagers from the reservation come to socialize. The food was already being passed around, and the boys hurried to claim a share while Eric introduced entered the driftwood, us as we each entered the driftwood circle. Angela and I were the last to arrive, and as Eric said our names, I noticed a younger boy sitting on the stones near the fire, glancing up at me in interest. I sat down next to Angela, and Mike brought out sandwiches and an array of sodas to choose from, while a boy who looked to be the oldest of the visitors rattled off the names of the other 7 with him. As I caught, all I caught was that one of the girls was also named Jessica, and the boy who noticed me was named Jacob. It was relaxing to sit with Angela. She was a restful kind of person. Wait, didn't she already meet Jacob? Or was that only in the movie? I guess it was only in the movie. Oh well. It was relaxing to sit with Angela. She was a restful kind of person to be around. She didn't feel the need to fill every silence with chatter. She left me free to think, undisturbed while we ate. And I was thinking about how disjointedly time seemed to flow in folks, passing in blurs at times, with single images standing out more clearly than others. And then, at other times, every second was significantly etched in my mind. I knew exactly what caused the difference, and it disturbed me. During lunch, the clouds started to advance, sinking across the blue sky, darting in front of the sun momentarily, casting long shadows across the beach and blackening the waves. As they finished eating, people started to drift away in twos and threes. Some walked down the edge of the waves, trying to skip rocks across the choppy surface. Others were gathering a second expedition to the tide pools. Mike, with Jessica shadowing him, headed to one of the shops in the village. Some of the local kids went with them, others went along the hike. By the time they all had scattered, I was sitting alone on my driftwood log with Lauren and Tyler occupying themselves by the CD player someone had thought to bring, and three teenagers from the reservation perched around the circle, including a boy named Jacob and the oldest boy who had acted as the spokesperson. A few minutes after Angela left with the hikers, Jacob sauntered over to take her place by my side. He looked 14, maybe 15, and had long, glossy black hair pulled back with a rubber band at the nape of his neck. His skin was beautiful, silky and russet colored. His eyes were dark, set deep above the high planes of his cheekbones. He still had just a hint of childish roundness left around his chin. Altogether, a very pretty face. However, my positive opinion of his looks was damaged by the first words out of his mouth. "You're Isabella Swan, aren't you?" It was like the first day of school all over again. "Bella," I sighed. "I'm Jacob Black." He held out his hand in a friendly manner. "You bought my dad's truck?" "Oh," I said, relieved, shaking his sleek hand. "You're Billy's son. I probably should remember you." "No, I'm the youngest of the family. You would remember my sister, Rachel and Rebecca." I suddenly recalled. Charlie and Billy had thrown us together a lot during my visits to keep us busy while they fished. We were all too shy to make such progress as friends. Of course, I'd kicked up enough tantrums to end the fishing trips by the time I was 11. Didn't. Huh, the movies lied to us. Jacob and Bella did not make mud pies together. That's sad. So very attached to that story. "Are they here?" I examined the girls at the ocean's edge, wondering if I could recognize them now. "No," Jacob shook his head. Rachel got a scholarship to Washington State, and Rebecca married a Samoan surfer. She lives in Hawaii now. Married. Wow. I was stunned. The twins were only a year older than I was. "So, how do you like the truck?" he asked. "I love it. It runs great." "Yeah, but it's really slow," he laughed. I was so relieved when Charlie bought it. My dad wouldn't let me work on building another car when we had a perfectly good vehicle right there. "It's not that slow," I objected. "Have you ever tried to go over 60? "No," I admitted. "Good, don't," he grinned. I couldn't help grinning back. "It does great in a collision," I offered in my truck's defense. "I don't think a tank could take out that old monster," he agreed with another laughter. "So you build cars?" I asked, impressed. "When I have free time and parts." "You wouldn't happen to know where I could get my hands on a master cylinder for a 1986 Volkswagen Rabbit?" he asked jokingly. He had a pleasant, husky voice. "Sorry," I laughed. "I haven't seen any lately, but I'll keep my eyes open for you." As if I knew what that was. He was very easy to talk with. He flashed a brilliant smile, looking at me appreciatively in a way I was learning to recognize. I was the only one who noticed. "You know Bella, Jacob?" Lauren asked, in what I imagined was an insolent tone from what across the fire. "We've sort of known each other since I was born," he laughed, smiling at me again. "How nice." She didn't sound like she thought it was nice at all, and her pale, fishy eyes narrowed. "Bella," she called again, watching me carefully. "I was just saying to Tyler that it was too bad none of the Cullens could come out today. Didn't anyone think to invite them?" Her expression of concern was unconvincing. "Do you mean Dr. Carlyle Cullen's family?" the tall, older boy asked before I could respond, much to Lauren's irritation. Hmm. He was really closer to a man than a boy, and his voice was very deep. "Yes, do you know them?" she asked condescendingly, turning halfway towards them. "The Cullens don't come here," he said in a tone that closed the subject, ignoring her question. Tyler, trying to win back her attention, asked Lauren's opinion on a CD he held. She was distracted. I stared at the deep voiced boy, taken aback, but he was looking away towards the dark forest behind us. He said that the Cullens didn't come here, but his tone implied something more, that they weren't allowed. They were prohibited. His manner left a strange impression on me and tried to ignore it without success. Jacob interrupted my meditation. "So is folks driving you insane yet?" "Oh, I'd say that it's an understatement," I grimaced. He grinned understandingly. I was still turning over the brief comment on the Cullens, and I had a sudden inspiration. It was a stupid plan, but I didn't have any better ideas. I hoped that young Jacob was as yet inexperienced around girls, so that he wouldn't see through my sure to be pitiful attempts at flirting. Damn, Bella, you could just ask him a question. I'm pretty sure he would just answer you. Do you want to walk down the beach with me? I asked, trying to imitate the that way Edward had of looking up from beneath his eyelashes. He could, oh no, he couldn't have nearly the same effect. I was sure, but Jacob jumped up willingly enough. As we walked north across the multi-hued stones through the driftwood seawall, the clouds finally closed ranks across the sky, causing the ski sea to darken and the temperature to drop. I shoved my hands down deep in the pockets of my jacket. So you're what, 16? I asked, trying not to look like an idiot as I fluttered my eyes the way I'd seen girls do on TV. I just turned 15, he confessed, flattered. Really? My face was full of false surprise. I would have thought you were older. I'm tall for my age, he explained. Do you come up to folks much? I asked archly, as I was hoping for a yes. It sounded idiotic to myself, and I was afraid he would turn on me with disgust and accuse me of fraud. But he was still flattered. Not much, he admitted with a frown. When I get my finished, I can go up as much as I want. After I get my license, he amended. Who was that older boy Lauren was talking to? He seemed a little old to be hanging out with us. I purposely lumped myself in with the youngsters, trying to make it clear that I preferred Jacob. That's Sam. He's 19, he informed me. What was he saying about the doctor's family? I asked innocently. The Cullens? Oh, they're not supposed to come onto the reservation. He looked away, out towards James Island, as he confirmed what I thought I'd heard in Sam's voice. Why not? He glanced back at me, biting his lips. Oops, I'm not supposed to say anything about that. Oh, I won't tell anyone. I'm just curious. I tried to make my smile alluring, wondering if I was laying it on too thick. He smiled back though, being looking allured. Then he lifted one eyebrow and his voice was even huskier than before. Do you like scary stories? He asked ominously. I love them, I enthused, making an effort to smolder at him. Oh my god, Bella, stop it. You're making me cringe. Jacob strolled to a nearby driftwood tree that had its roots sticking out like the attuned legs of a huge pale spider. He perched lightly on one of the twisted roots while I sat beneath him on the body of the tree. He stared down at the rocks, a smile hovering around the edge of his broad lips. I could see he was going to try to make this good. I focused on keeping the vital interest I felt out of my eyes. Do you know any of our old stories about where we came from? The Quilliets, I mean, he began. Not really, I admitted. Well, there are a lot of legends, some of them claiming to date back to the flood. Supposedly, the ancient Quilliets tied their canoes to the top of the tallest trees on the mountain to survive like Noah and the Ark. He smiled to show me how little stock he put in the histories. Another legend claims that we descended from wolves and that the wolves are our brothers still. It's against the tribal law to kill them. Then there are stories about the cold ones. His voice dropped a little lower. The cold ones? I asked, not faking my intrigue now. Yes, there are stories of the cold ones as old as the wolf legends, and some much more recent. According to the legend, my great grandfather knew some of them. He was the one who made the treaty that kept them off our land. He rolled his eyes. Your great grandfather? I encouraged. He was a tribal leader, like my father. You see, the cold ones are the natural enemies of the wolves. Well, not the wolf really, but the wolves that turn into men like our ancestors. You would call them werewolves. Werewolves have enemies. Only one. I stared at him honestly, hoping to disguise my impatience as admiration. So you see, Jacob continued, the cold ones are traditionally our enemies. But this pack that came to our territory during my grandfather's time was different. They didn't hunt the way others of their kind did. They weren't supposed to be dangerous to the tribe, so my great grandfather made a truce with them. If they would promise to stay off our lands, we wouldn't expose them to the pale faces. He winked at me. If they weren't dangerous, then why? I tried to understand, struggling not to let him see how seriously I was considering his ghost story. There's always a risk for humans to be around the cold ones, even if they're civilized like this clan was. You never know when they might get too hungry to resist. He deliberately worked a thick edge of menace into his tone. What do you mean civilized? They claimed that they didn't hunt humans, they supposedly were somehow able to prey on animals instead. I tried to keep my voice casual. So, how does it fit in with the Cullens? Are they like the cold ones your great grandfather met? No, he paused dramatically. They are the same ones. He must have thought that the expression on my face was fear inspired by the story. He smiled, pleased, and continued. There are more of them now, a new female and a new male, but the rest are the same. In my great grandfather's time, they already knew of the leader, Carlyle. He'd been here and gone before your people had arrived. He was fighting a smile. And what are they? What are they? I finally asked. What are the cold ones? He smiled darkly. Blood drinkers, he replied in a chilling voice. Your people call them vampires. I stared out at the rough surf after he answered, not sure what my face was exposing. You have goosebumps, he laughed. And you're stupid. I'm sorry, like, you. He says werewolves, and you're like, okay, werewolves, I'm listening. And then he says cold ones, and you can't put two and two together. Bella? Bella. I can't. Oh my god. Maybe she's just not into the supernatural, but if you read, even if you don't read supernatural stuff, you would know what a vampire is. And someone says enemy of vampire, your mind would automatically, aut- enemy of werewolves, your mind would automatically go vampire. But no, she has to have it spelled out for her. You're a good story. I mean, what if you meant mosquito? Yeah, I don't think mosquitoes are the natural enemy of the werewolf. I don't think that would make sense. Yeah, but it would be more interesting if you meant like blood drinkers, he replied in a chilling voice. Your people call them mosquitoes. How different would the story be if the Cullens weren't actually vampires, but they were shifters and they shifted into mosquitoes during the full moon? My god. I don't want to read that. I don't want to write that, but I want to read that. Okay, let's see. Oh my god, I'm gonna be thinking about this all night. Thanks. Great. Uh, you have goosebumps. He laughed delightedly. You're a good storyteller. I complimented him, still staring into the waves. Pretty crazy stuff, though, isn't it? No wonder my dad doesn't want us to talk about it to anyone. I couldn't control my expression enough to look at him yet. Don't worry, I won't give you away. How many would die in the summer getting smushed? No. They don't transform into tiny itty bitty mosquitoes. No, they transform into human sized mosquitoes. Like, that would be more entertaining and they would be more of a threat that way. And then, I wanted, that one scene where Edward takes off his shirt under the sun and it just sparkles. Instead of that, it's him and Bella under the moon, and like the full moon comes out and he turns into a mosquito and he's like, do you see this, Bella? This is the skin of a killer, a mosquito. And she's still like, but I love you. And then you realize that she was just a monster fucker all along. Like the hardcore level monster fucker. She's like, okay, we are gonna. What is that one movie? One where that lady falls in love with a fish man. Oh my god. Anyways, I couldn't control my expression enough to look at him yet. Don't worry, I won't give you away. I guess I just violated the treaty, he laughed. I'll take it to the grave, I promised, and then I shivered. Seriously though, don't say anything to Charlie. He was pretty mad at my dad when he heard that some of us weren't going to the hospital since Dr. Cullen started working there. I won't, of course not. So, do you think we're a bunch of superstitious natives or what? He asked in a playful tone, but with a hint of worry. I still hadn't looked away from the ocean. I turned and smiled at him as normally as I could. No, I think you're very good at telling scary stories, though. I still have goosebumps, see? I held up my arm. Cool, he smiled. And then the sound of the beach rocks clattering against each other warned us that someone was approaching. Our heads snapped up at the same time to see Mike and Jessica about 50 yards away walking towards us. There you are, Bella, Mike called in relief, waving his arms over his head. Is that your boyfriend? Jacob asked, alerted by the jealous edge in Mike's voice. I was surprised it was so obvious. No, definitely not, I whispered. I was tremendously grateful to Jacob and eager to make him as happy as possible. I winked at him, carefully turning away from Mike to do so. He smiled, elated by my inept flirting. So when I get my license, he began, you should come see me and folks. We could hang out sometime. I felt guilty as I said this, knowing that I'd used him. But I really did like Jacob. He was someone I could easily be friends with. Mike had reached us now with Jessica still a few paces back. I could see his eyes appraising Jacob and looking satisfied at his obvious youth. Where have you been? He answered though the answer was right in front of me. Jacob was telling me some local stories. I volunteered. It was really interesting. I smiled at Jacob warmly and he grinned back. Well, Mike paused, carefully reassessing the situation as he watched our camaraderie. We're packing it up. It looks like it's going to rain soon. We all looked up at the glowering sky. It certainly did look like rain. Okay, I jumped up. I'm coming. It was nice to see you again, Jacob said, and I could tell he was taunting Mike just a bit. It really was. Next time Charlie comes down to see Billy, I'll come too, I promised. His grin stretched across his face. That would be cool. And thanks, I added honestly. I pulled up my hood as we tramped across the rocks towards the parking lot. A few drops were beginning to fall, making black spots on the stone where they landed. When we got to the suburban, the others were already loading everything back in. I crawled into the back seat by Angela and Tyler, announcing that I'd already had my turn in shotgun position. Angela just stared out the window at the escalating storm, and Lauren twisted around in the middle seat to occupy Tyler's attention. So I could simply lay my head back on the seat and close my eyes and try very hard not to think. Ha! That is it for today. Hold on. I mean, I think this is a good pace, just doing like 2 chapters per stream because I also don't have a lot of time. But my god. I can't stop thinking of Mosquito Edward now. God damn it. Why did I do this to myself? I am my own. I'm like my worst enemy. Now I just imagine like the Cullens having a strange fascination with people's arms. Like they're always staring at because that's where mosquitoes usually drink blood from. What is that one movie? I really want to know. Movie where a woman falls in love with a fish. That's literally. Oh, people have asked this question. The Shape of Water. Yes. Listen, folks. Monster fucker Bella is real. Oh, it's so warm all of a sudden. What the hell? I hate this weather so much. Like, make up your mind. Are you cold? Are you hot? You can't be both. It just doesn't work that way. Anyways, I probably have more thoughts about Mosquito Edward while I'm trying to sleep. Rest assured, I will tell you, because if I have to suffer, so do you. Hey, hello, welcome. So I'm sorry, I'm just gonna blame you for this one. Like, why would you bring that up? What if you meant mosquitoes? That one sentence has ruined my life. I don't need the Twilight AU where everyone's mosquitoes. God, no. Why? Oh well. Anyways, this was fun. I couldn't help it. Just you wait, Sue. Just you wait. I will be texting you 24/7 with Mosquito Edward headcanons. And before you know it, you will regret ever speaking those words into existence. Anyways, y'all, I'm gonna wrap things up here. I have 2 more streams scheduled for this week for now. Like I said, Friday and Saturday I will see whether I want to stream or not, because sometimes I just want to take a nap, just long 12-hour naps where people look at me, like my mom comes in and she's just like, are you dead or are you alive? No, but I kind of want stop encouraging me. For the love of God. Hello. Welcome. It's nice to have you here. We are talking. This is gonna sound very, very weird, but I just want to explain to anyone that's new here, that just stepped into this craziness, that we are talking about Twilight, but if everyone in the book was a mosquito and not a vampire. So, I need somebody to take precious hours of their life and just copy paste like giant human sized mosquitoes into every scene of Twilight. I would do it, but I don't have technical skill like that. Oh my god, that would be so funny. And I'm pretty sure if I had to stare at a picture of a giant mosquito, I would start crying. I don't like insects. So yeah, maybe don't actually do that. Don't listen to me. I'm crazy. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I never know what I'm talking about. If I did, it would be a completely different stream. Oh my god. What the hell? Why is it so hot? Is it hot because the weather is hot, or is it hot because I'm losing my mind from embarrassment? I was fine until I realized that, oh wait, people are watching me talk like an idiot. I have done this to myself. Never mind. I'm going to bed. I've had a long day at work. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna sleep. You guys should do the same if it's 7 a.m. in the morning. Boy. Anyways, I'm not gonna stream tomorrow, but I am streaming on Tuesday and Wednesday if I got the timing right on my schedule. But yeah, we are going to play Nameless, of course. Gotta continue with that story. Need to wrap up that route so I can get onto the good stuff. And obviously Myth Manor. And by that I mean Stardew Valley. You know, there's an actual show named Myth Manor where young guys go on the show to find the love of their life, and the love of their life is just MILFs. And it might sound bad, but it actually gets worse because the participants of the show are a mother and son, like pairs of mothers and their sons, their adult sons. And yeah, so you come onto the show with your mom and then you date somebody else's mom. That is the concept of Myth Manor. It's horrifying. I don't know who came up with it, but there are certain, like, I am all for unhinged crap. Oh, sorry, hold on 1 second. I think this should be better. Yeah, I am all for unhinged stuff, like commit to the bit, but this is too much. Like, how do you get people to even sign up for a show where it's like, hey, you want to date young, like you go to a MILF and you go like, hey, you want to date young men? And she's like, hell yeah. Do you have a son? And it's like, maybe I do. And then they're like, does your son want to date a MILF? Like, how do you get people to participate in this show is what I want to know. Like, you should see videos. Like, I'm not telling you to watch the show. Don't watch the show. Don't do that to yourself. Just watch videos of people talking about the show, and you will know how bad it is. I haven't seen it. I've just seen videos of people talking about it, because I'm not going to do that to myself. There is only so much I can do with the bit. This watching Myth Manor is not it. I'm sorry. And this is coming from somebody who loves reality TV, because, like, Love is Blind. Let's fucking go. It's not blind. Y'all are shallow as fuck, but let's go. I've seen all the seasons of Love is Blind. The reunions are just so spicy. The Ultimatum. Again, the worst people ever come on TV and try to be romantic. It's a train wreck, but I'm here for it. But MILF Manor? Fucking yikes. How did I get onto this topic? I was talking about Stardew Valley. Thank you. Okay, that's great. I'm glad. Okay. I was talking about Stardew Valley. How did I get here? Anyways, we'll see you guys on Tuesday. I'm gonna take a break tomorrow just to kind of relax and work on some other stuff. So I will see you on Tuesday, which is technically Wednesday. It's just, just go to the waiting rooms and see the time. I cannot tell you like at what time the stream is going to start because my schedule is so messed up. I work at US time, so everything is kind of according to that. So it's like 5 p.m. PST. Yeah, it's 5 p.m. PST. So yeah, I will see you on Tuesday then. I'm gonna catch some sleep because I am exhausted. And I am going to lie in bed and think about Mosquito Edward. Thanks a lot, Sue, once again. I'll see you guys next time. Good night. Bye bye.